Hey there everybody, this is our first YouTube exclusive video. I'm so excited to continue this journey with you on this platform and really dive into some new education teacher-centric content. A few weeks ago I did a video talking about how certain school districts were limiting teachers in their ability to provide books in their classroom for students, like their own student library, and just how, that was taking away representation in the classroom. And I had someone comment on it, and they had said, has to be a right to work state, unions protect educators. And that kind of made me start thinking more about unions and what they can do for teachers, and how important they are, really. And it was, my friend, this is in Arizona, so it is a right to work state. Our unions don't have quite as much power here in districts, as far as you really have to, know what it is, that it's there, that it's available for you. And a lot of new teachers coming out of school, they don't know what that is. They don't know that. And there's some things happening in Arizona that will really change that. And that's what this video is going to be about. So we're going to dive right into it. Let's go. In 2018, I walked out of my classroom and drove to the Arizona State Capitol with thousands of other teachers. We wore red, we made signs, we chanted, and we shut down school districts across the state. And people said we won, but I've been sitting with that word, won, for 7 years now, and I think we need to talk about what that actually means, because some of it was real, and some of it was a story we needed to believe. I taught in Arizona for about 17 years, and this is me on my way there in May of 2018. I didn't know what the day was going to be. I just knew I had to show up. I was in that movement. I have the photos. I lived the before and the after. I'm not here to trash what we built. I was proud to be part of it. And I still am, but I think the people who were there and the educators still in classrooms right now deserve an accounting, an honest accounting. So let's do that. Especially my state in Arizona, we didn't stop the bleeding of teachers leaving the profession. If anything, the pace has accelerated because pay is part of the problem, but it was never the whole problem. Workload, autonomy, respect, the way teachers are treated by policy and by the public, that didn't change. So here's what Red for Ed accomplished. Arizona teacher pay did increase, of course not enough, but it did go up. The initiative pushed salaries up in ways that hadn't happened in years, and that money was real money in real teachers' pockets, and we earned it. One of the things that Red for Ed did that I think is so important is that we changed the conversation nationally. Arizona was the spark. After that, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Colorado, Kentucky, teachers across the country watched us, and they said, if they can do it, we can do it too. And the movement became a permission slip. Red for Ed made teaching working conditions visible, and suddenly people who had no idea what was happening inside classrooms were paying attention. Parents, community members, journalists, the inside of a school stopped being invisible. And maybe most importantly, we proved that teachers have collective power when we decide to use it. And that sounds small, but it wasn't small. Teachers are conditioned to absorb everything quietly. And Red for Ed really cracked that open. So here we are at the state capitol in the House gallery listening to our representatives. And there's me, I'm the blonde right there. Anyway, just look at that room. That's not a protest outside. That's teachers inside the building where laws get made, demanding to be heard. And that happened because of what we built together. And, here's the part that's harder to say. We didn't change, the structural funding problems. Arizona's school funding is still tied to a property tax system that makes zip code destiny. And the schools that were under-resourced before Red for Ed are still under-resourced. This is also from the Copper Courier. So this is a quote from the president of the Arizona Education Association, which is the state's largest teachers union, just saying that what we're seeing right now just scratches the surface. And now in 2026, they're coming for what little protection teachers have left. Copper Courier here as well. House Bill 2313 would prevent teachers from striking against their school district or charter school, and violations could result in districts losing funding from the state education department. So 2 teachers coordinating counts as a work stoppage under this bill's language. 2 teachers, that's it. 2 people talking about walking out is enough to cost their district state funding. They saw what we did in 2018 and they wrote a bill to make sure it could never happen again. And then there's the House Concurrent Resolution 2040, which is designated to eliminate education unions like Arizona Education Association entirely, which is going to prohibit school districts from using any public resources to support labor organizations. So they don't just want to silence teachers, they want to dismantle every structure that gives teachers any collective voice at all. Sadly, that included me. And that's not a failure of the movement, but it's the truth of what one walkout can and can't do against a decade of deliberate policy decisions. So what do I think Red for Ed actually was? I think it was a window, a moment when the public looked at public education and saw what educators had been living for years, and windows don't stay open forever. This article is from March of 2026, a few weeks ago. Teachers at the Arizona State Capitol, again, holding signs that say invest in our schools, again, 7 years later, and we are still having the exact same fight, except now the tools being used against educators are sharper, more organized, and more aggressive than anything we faced in 2018. And the question I keep coming back to is, what do we do now that the window is mostly closed? Because public schools are under more pressure now than they were in 2018. And the conversation has shifted. The funding is more fragmented. The attacks on curriculum, on teachers, on the profession itself, they didn't stop. They accelerated. That's all any teacher has ever asked for. The ability to do the job, to be trusted in the room, to make decisions for the kids in front of them. And Red for Ed showed us that, what's possible when educators stop waiting to be rescued and decide to be visible. And that's the lesson that still applies. We don't necessarily need another walkout. We need that same energy, that refusal to be silent in every school board meeting, every legislative session, every conversation with a parent, every comment section. That's why I'm here. This channel exists because that fight is not over and I'm not done fighting it. So I just want to bring this back up again, and I'm just going to read this from the Arizona Education Association president. She says, teachers are courageous, compassionate, not asking to be billionaires, just asking for the ability to do their jobs and make decisions in their job spaces. That's all we want. And even though I had to leave because I've told you my story of why, I'm not going to stop talking about this. I'm just not. It's just not something I want to stop talking about. It needs to be talked about and shared. So if you were part of Red for Ed in Arizona or anywhere else, I want to hear from you in the comments. What do you think it won? And what do you wish had been different? And if you're a current teacher trying to figure out how to keep going right now, or a former teacher who left and is still processing why, this channel is for you. So please make sure you hit subscribe because we are just getting started. And I will see you guys next time. Thanks.